Everyone is telling you to put your podcast on YouTube, and it seems like everybody's doing it. And you're sitting there thinking, should I be doing this too? But as a podcast manager and a podcast strategist, hear me loud and clear when I say YouTube is not a podcast strategy. And if your podcast is not getting you clients yet, adding YouTube to the mix isn't going to fix that. It's literally just going to give you the same exact problem on two different platforms. And if you haven't made that leap yet, if you don't currently have your podcast on YouTube or a YouTube channel at all for that matter, you might feel like you're behind. But the actual feeling that you are behind because your podcast is not on YouTube, that's not a strategy either. And that pressure that you're feeling right now, that's marketing. That's not giving you direction. And I want to be really, really honest with you right now because I'm a podcast manager and a podcast strategist, and I'm literally building my YouTube channel right now. But YouTube is a completely different platform. I started my podcast because I wanted to be audio only. I didn't want to put on makeup, which by the way, I don't even wear makeup anymore, but I didn't want to have to do that. I didn't want to have to feel the pressure of like brushing my hair or putting nice clothes on. Like I literally loved the thought of getting behind a microphone in whatever the heck I was wearing with no judgment, right? Nobody can see me. I'm just doing my thing behind a microphone. And I loved that. And that worked for me for about 4 years until I was ready to take YouTube on as a completely different strategy. YouTube has its own algorithm, as I'm sure you well know. It's got its own viewer behavior. It's a completely different animal than audio podcasting itself. So if you take your audio and you put a static image behind it, you upload it to YouTube and you call it a day, is that going to hurt your business or is that going to hurt in any type of way? Absolutely not. In fact, it's going to help, right? The more places you are, the more that you post content, the more that you're going to get seen, the more that you're going to get visible, the more that your business is going to grow. Like that's just a fact, right? But is that sustainable and is that the best move necessarily? Or is that the best use of your time? Probably not. And I've seen this so many times. When that happens, the views are incredibly low. I'm talking 1 view, 7 views consistently across the board. It doesn't matter if you've published 5 or 70 episodes. I've seen it where they have 70 episodes on YouTube, a static image with the audio, and 1 to 7 views on literally all of them. And yes, every single view counts for sure, absolutely. But like I said, is that the best use of your time? I really don't think so. Because YouTube is a visual platform and that's not going to do you any favors. So before you even think about adding YouTube to your podcast strategy, I want you to ask yourself, is my podcast actually working for me right now? Are people listening and then reaching out to work with you? Are your episodes bringing you warm leads? Is your podcast actually doing something to support your business? Because if the answer is no, and you're publishing episodes every single week, and your podcast is not converting, adding YouTube is not going to fix that. And I know that I mentioned the static image, but even if you're taking your video as a podcast and simply uploading that to YouTube, yes, that is 100% better than nothing. And I would rather you use the footage of your audio podcast and put it up there than nothing at all. Absolutely. There is nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is it's not going to serve you to fully add that to your strategy if your foundation is not locked in, because now you're just doubling your workload for the exact same result. So I'm not saying that adding YouTube to your podcast strategy is something that you shouldn't do. Clearly, I am a huge proponent of having YouTube as a strategy on its own, but this YouTube channel serves a completely different. So I'm not telling you not to add YouTube to your podcast strategy, but what I am saying is that it should be a separate strategy from your podcast. Because even though I am a podcaster on YouTube, my YouTube strategy is completely separate from my podcast strategy, even though the end result is the same, which my end result and the end result for my clients and my students is to get clients from their podcast. That's the exact same way that I treat YouTube, but the strategy is completely different. So adding YouTube to your podcast strategy is a great idea if your podcast is already converting and you have the capacity to treat YouTube as its own separate strategy, because it is not just a repurposing dumping ground. So if that's you, absolutely fantastic. I want you to explore that. But if you're still trying to figure out why your podcast is not converting the way that you want it to, my best recommendation for you is to audit your podcast and fix that foundation first. And if you want to know exactly why your podcast is not getting clients, I want to invite you to my free masterclass, How to Get Clients from Your Podcast Without More Downloads. You can sign up at pamelakrista.com/class. I will also put the link for you down below.